Well, there is an old saying, don't believe everything you hear, and don't believe everything you read. This article popped up on my phone. I don't subscribe to this news service, but somehow, even though they haven't managed to install the app on my phone, I'm actually getting articles from this quote-unquote news service. Let's call it propaganda, folks. Let's call it what it is. Well, I don't want to offend anybody, but the gist of the article is they show a picture of Trump looking angry, and they're talking about capping SNAP benefits. I guess they just kind of think that I'm in the demographic that I automatically receive food stamps and welfare and everything. And you know what? I grew up in a middle-class environment, so I've known people who receive food stamps. You know what? My parents were working professionals, so we didn't have food stamps. We didn't qualify. And I have to say, when I was in high school, I was a bit snobby, and I thought, these people, they're just poor, they're just lazy. You know what? Now I think, if you feel that it's appropriate for you to be receiving that aid, then God bless you and the Lord love you. I mean, seriously, it's like, yes, there are inequities in society. Oh, yes, absolutely there are. But, can we change the subject? I lived out in the country when I was a kid, and we didn't have cable. But briefly, after my parents' divorce, we were blessed with cable. We were blessed with HBO, and now for something completely different. So I saw that many times. I kind of remind myself of that. And now for something completely different. Monty Python, John Cleese. Why are people so angry in society? They really are. Do you ever get into these situations? See, I live in America, so I traveled abroad a long time ago. When my friends and I were in London, we didn't know when we were supposed to cross the street, and this they had these black taxi cabs, what they used to in London, and the guy's like, "We've been waiting for you, just cross the road." I'm like, we're such idiots. It's like the country mouse going to the city. I've never even been to New York or Boston. Then I'm in London. I have no clue. I have absolutely no clue. Isn't that crazy? Anyway. So yesterday I'm driving into this little burg, and you have to, you're forced to merge into one lane. And then they also have the sign like they're tracking your speed. So it's supposed to be 35 miles per hour. And so I realized, oh my goodness, I'm in the 40s. I better just slow down because I had to get in the right lane. I had to slow down. And apparently this person in this really big, expensive pickup truck is mad that I slowed down. I mean, I slowed down because it's like, I am going over the speed limit and they're tracking my speed. I don't want to get a ticket. And this person is just so angry at me. Seriously. I didn't make the law that, it's supposed to be 35 miles per hour. Yeah, we have to merge into one lane. Did I orchestrate all of this? Like, boy, wouldn't that be interesting if that person is angry because they assume because I don't drive a very expensive vehicle, flashy vehicle, they assume that I'm receiving SNAP benefits, and they're angry because they're forced to pay for my benefits, which actually don't exist. That's just completely fallacious. I mean, the Lord is my provider, right? Jehovah Jireh, my provider. His grace is sufficient for me. I've been really tapping into that grace account lately. I can tell you that. Yes, I have. Listen, if you have received largesse, especially from the Lord, you should share it with others. And so I say, I'm not resentful. I mean, of course, it would be different if my income were being taxed. If I work really hard and a certain percentage was just taken away and just given away to other people. I mean, I think of all the sermons I've heard over the years. Sow it as a seed. No, I didn't voluntarily donate this money to people that may actually be getting welfare and yet buying really flashy, expensive vehicles, you know. But listen, there are people, for the sake of the people that really do need the food assistance, God bless them. But let's also pray for them that they wouldn't be dependent on a system that's faulty. What did Paul say? He who won't work won't eat. You know, if they're not going to work, they're not going to eat. You know, that sounds pretty harsh. Let's think about, of course, I heard this on the radio a few days ago. So I'm being a bit of a copycat. I'm running with it. I'm actually running with it. You know, he gave me the ball. I'm running with it. And I did hear this in my history class. I don't know what they're teaching kids these days in history and social studies in American schools. However, I had pretty good history teachers. And they said when the Pilgrims first came, I don't want to say the Pilgrims. I want to say Jamestown. I think it was actually a corporate venture. Jamestown wasn't settled by the Pilgrims. Sometimes you can't believe everything you hear on the radio because sometimes they kind of muddle their facts and confuse their facts, these people. It's like, oh, maybe I should stop listening to you because you're muddling and confusing the facts. It started out as sort of like, I want to say like a socialist enterprise where, you know, we have a common goal, so everybody has to contribute, and you know, it was a socialist system. And then the young men got really upset. Why? Because they're doing all this work for other people's families. They don't have kids, they don't have a wife and kids, and yet all their labor is going to supporting other people's families. Yeah, that wasn't working out very well. So I can't remember. The leader of the Jamestown community said, hey, listen, you got to pay to play or whatever, you know. We are supposed to be rewarded for our labor. Do you understand that? If you put a lot of work into something and you reap a large benefit from it, other people shouldn't be envious. Well, I don't have the ability to work hard, but please listen, dear friends, in America, people go on disability all the time. Well, I'm not able to work, and so I get a free paycheck. And yet these people seem to be the most miserable people on earth, don't they? They're always angry. They're always dissatisfied. I think it's a trap, folks. Don't believe everything you read. Don't believe every news article. I'm telling you, do the research for yourself. Maybe you didn't have a teacher who was well informed. Maybe you had teachers who had ill intentions and didn't like America and were brainwashed and were propagandists. Maybe you had professors like that. We can undo the damage. Inquiring minds want to know. Don't you want to know?